Kim, you just signed in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Brenda's mother never got it. And that sister actually got Moderna and got very sick. So the sister that had COVID got a Moderna shot.
Pardon?
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Rachel, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing?
Trying to get like everything up on my computer.
Quite a bit tonight. Quite a bit.
That's right. Marathon.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. So I see a number of people on the call, and just in preparation for starting the meeting in 2 minutes, I'm just asking if you're not on the commission of the applicants that we're speaking about at this time, that you mute yourself until it's your turn to speak. The public hearing will go over the rules for how to raise your hand to be heard at the time the public hearing is open. But now, anybody that's not on the commission, please mute yourself. There's a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen, and if you're calling, muting on your phone. So please do that at this time back for our recording purposes.
Rachel, do you want me to go ahead and mute people if they don't mute themselves?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself once I mute you, but I think everybody's doing it now.
Great.
And then Rachel, Kim just wanted to make sure that when people speak, they I don't know if you mentioned this, just say who they are and where they're from, just because she doesn't have the video.
And so that will be at the time of the public hearing again, but yes, for the applicants, it's always good that you announce who you are, especially if you're not on video and we haven't met you before. All right.
Dan, this is Evan. I'm assuming that this is being recorded.
You betcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I set it up so it automatically records. But
Okay, I just didn't.
Michelle
I
edits
didn't.
out the beginning.
Yeah, I just didn't see anything that said it was being recorded.
And then
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
if at any time the baby starts screaming, I'm going to mute myself. And if I have to talk, I'll unmute myself. But we don't want that being on the record. All right.
I'm sure the public will be understanding.
Oh no, this is his colicky bewitching hour, so it should get pretty loud. But I do see it's 6 o'clock, so I am going to start the meeting. So I would like to call to order this regular meeting, and which will include a public hearing of the Old Lyme Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission of Old Lyme. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. It's 6 p.m. and we're meeting via web. The first item is new business. One, application 21-5 for Christopher Marchant of 7 Sandpiper Point Road to cut down some broken tree limbs and removal of some trees. So Chris, if you're on the call or anybody that represents Chris, you can unmute yourself, and then we did a site walk with you. So that one up at this time.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Chris Marchant, wife Maria Marchant. So yeah, so in terms of what we're looking for doing in the setback area is there's a lot of brush down on the ground that's dead that we want to take out. There's a broken tree limb that fell off one of the taller trees from the storm last August. And it's sort of sitting upright and it poses a danger. So we want to remove that as well. That has since been classified as being dead too. And then we have another tree that broke during a winter storm that's hanging. And so we would like to just cut that down and remove it.
So we did have a sidewalk last, hard to believe. Does anybody have any particular questions or concerns that they would like to voice? Commission members, I should say.
Yeah, this is this is Evan Griswold, and I'd like to, maybe out of turn, raise the issue, but I think it's an important one, and that is when the Eklund subdivision was approved, the Planning Commission came to the Wetlands Commission and the Open Space Commission, who owns and the Open Space Commission is in charge of the pond. The town of Old Lyme owns the pond, and the Open Space
Hey, Chris,
Commission.
I'm going to mute you until they're done talking. We're getting some feedback from you.
At the time that the Eklund subdivision was approved, the Open Space Commission requested that because of the sensitive nature of the pond as a migratory bird and animal habitat, that no cutting, that there be a no cutting restriction on the within 100 feet of the edge of the pond. And that obviously has since, that information obviously was never given to the owners who bought the lots, unfortunately, but the stipulation stands in the record. And I think it's an important issue that that stipulation has since been violated. And I think we need to decide whether we need I would recommend a plan if we approve anything, that it's got to be according to a plan that's drawn up to regenerate the habitat that was lost by the cutting that's already been done.
I looked at the approval from them, and looking at it, that only applies to lot 7 and 8, which is not this lot for the for that condition, if I'm reading it correctly.
That's how I read it as well, Tom. The two lots that had that condition on it were not the lot in question, even though it is 7 Sandpiper Point Road. It wasn't lot 7 on the subdivision map. So,
I see.
So that particular issue doesn't apply to Mr. Marchant's land. And the way I see it, we did see the broken trees that are at issue in this application. I see no issue with removing them. Mr. Marchant, what kind of equipment will be used, if you know? Are you hiring a tree service or something to get the dead trees out?
So Rachel, we will ultimately be hiring a tree service company, so I don't know what type of equipment would be necessary at this point in time. Obviously, we would encourage that if equipment is absolutely necessary, it would, require minimal use within the setback area.
Rachel, can you tell me when the listening public can ask questions?
So this is for a new business item. Are you asking questions about
Questions about the subject? Rachel, the subject at hand, I would like to just have clarification from Evan on what he said. So will you tell me when it's appropriate to ask such a question?
how about after we just determine, because if your questions aren't for the particular application at hand, if they're about the issue that Evan raised with regards to the subdivision plan, that's not something that's in front of this commission right now. What we are looking at is just Mr. Marchand's application to remove broken branches. This is something that might come up another time, for the other lots that are at issue, but right now it's not on the agenda. So I would say that if it needs to come up, it can come up at the end of the meeting, which is after the public hearing as well, or at a subsequent meeting. But right now we're just concerned with Mr. Marchand's application.
Okay, it's just I was a inland wetlands commissioner in another part of the state for a number of years, and I just thought maybe there'd be clarification, but I'm fine and I understand. So that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome. Okay, and just for the record, that according to WebEx, that was Susan Bates. Okay, so Mr. What particular equipment is going to be used, and just that there will be minimally invasive access to the 100-foot review area. You also mentioned some brush you would like removed. Is that same company going to be taking care of that brush that you mentioned?
Yes, it would, Rachel. I would hire one company to do the entire job.
I personally don't have any issues with the removal of the dead tree that we saw in the dead brush. From my understanding, it's not like Mr. Marchand is trying to turn that hill into a lawn. So as long, in my opinion, as long as the tree company uses best practices in regards to that area to remove the dead matter, I'm okay. Everything going forward. Does anybody have any other concerns about this application or the equipment that's used?
This is Evan again. I think that the branch certainly can be removed by hand tools, including a chainsaw. So I just have a concern that if we let this go without some kind of collaboration between the Wetlands Commission, the Open Space Commission, this is pretty serious habitat, and I'm concerned that if we let this go without any stipulations or any controls, that all the other lots that border the pond will feel that, and rightly so, that they have the right to go and do the clearing, the kind of clearing that was done around the pond, which is, basically clearing out the habitat.
I think what they're doing right now would fall under and trimming. I don't think that would fall under clearing, so I don't know that.
Well, the understory's gone, Tom.
Tom, your microphone, you muted yourself.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I
they're
agree, Evan.
right now, I don't think is regulated activity.
Well, it's within the the setback, the 100-foot setback review zone. And so it would be regulated under that condition, whether it is in the stipulated area or not. We have to regard any cutting within the zone as a regulated activity. And therefore, I think because of the special nature of Eklund Pond and Shippey Pond, and the concerns that were raised when the Eklund subdivision was approved, that we ought to be doing a little better job of guiding the homeowner in the protection of a pretty, I mean, they have a very nice spot next to a pond, but it also is something that's used yearly, twice a year, as a migratory stopover spot in the Connecticut River Valley.
I do agree with you, Evan, that we do have to look at the 100-foot review area. I think that Mr. and Mrs. Marchant have done the right thing by coming to the commission to ask permission and to put in their application what they're doing and try to get best practices honored. I don't think that this particular application is the way to make an example for all the neighbors or address the issue with the subdivision, because that concerns 2 other lots, the stipulation that was put in. And because his lot isn't beholden to that stipulation, the fact that he's coming forward to ask permission for the removal of the dead tree limb, it seems so minimal, and that he's not trying to cut down healthy trees. And hopefully, you know, other homeowners in that subdivision will follow the Marchant's good example and come before the commission to ask for permission before they do any work within the 100-foot upland review area. But if they don't, then we send out Dan as our enforcement officer. But I think that, you know, we can't go beyond the scope of just this particular application to try to make wide sweeping rules over the whole subdivision at this time.
I understand. We have in the past required planting plans and so forth that to rehabilitate properties that have been cleared, and in my estimation, we should follow that practice on a regular basis.
I agree, but luckily that's not the case with this particular property. So does anybody either want to make a motion about the removal of the dead tree limbs and the dead brush on the Marchant's property, or does anybody have any follow-up questions or stipulations that they would like put in the particular motion to either approve this application before moving forward or deny it?
Yeah, Rachel, my question is, if there's been a lot of brush removed from that hillside, what's going to happen when it rains? It's going to wash all that topsoil into the pond.
I would think certainly erosion is a concern of and perhaps they can follow up with their tree removal company. From what they stated in their application and at the site walk, they're just looking to remove the dead brush. I did see a lot of healthy looking brush on that hillside when we went to the walk. So if that's not removed, then, you know, that's the living brush. I would think that would help the erosion a good deal.
I'll make a motion for the application as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and who just seconded? Sorry. Oh, it's Mike, sorry.
Mike.
it pops up. I only have a couple squares on my screen. So Tom made the motion, Mike seconded. All those in favor, I can say I'm in favor.
Aye.
I'm in favor.
And then all those opposed.
I'm opposed.
Opposed.
Okay, so Gary and Evan opposed. Any abstentions? Okay, and is Bob on the call? I have a second to answer. Okay, I hear Bob piping in. So the motion passes 3-2. Doing the math in my head, sorry. Okay, so then we'll just note for the record that there were 2 opposed and it was Evan and Gary. All right. All right, so moving on, unless Mr. and Mrs. Marchant, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time. No, thank you, Rachel.
We're good.
Okay, you're welcome to have a good night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the rest of new business. So all these, so it's numbers 2 through 5 on the agenda. We'll have to set site walks for. So through 6,
2
I'm
through
seeing.
6.
Oh, okay, so I must be looking at an outdated agenda. My apologies. So for the rest of the applications, we will have to set sidewalk visits. Is there a particular time in the following month that is good?
Hey, Rachel, while the commission considers what days work for them, I just wanted to mention there are no physical structures associated with the sewer application. You know, like with the prior one with the bioxide facility. So it all is just pipes in the ground and drainage. So we certainly can schedule a time, and I can coordinate with their engineering staff as to where it might be appropriate to meet with them. But did you definitely want to do a site walk for that one, or?
Sure. I'm just about the reminder. We're not on the committee. We're getting some. You.
I didn't hear you. You broke up there.
I was just asking for people to mute themselves because I was getting feedback. So perfect. Problem fixed. So I think for the sewer application, that sounds great. I know the sewer application has been before us multiple times before, and we have gone out. For the record, I will say I am recused from that application due to the nature of my law practice and how this application might relate to that. So I'm conflicting myself out. But I think that sounds great, Dan, if you can coordinate with their engineering staff to give a place to perhaps meet for the rest of the commission members. All right, so then for the rest, has everybody had a chance to review their calendars? I know we have a lot more light, so if we want to do it on a weekday, that's great. And I know that starting at 5:30 is great for Mike, just so he has time to get back to Old Lyme from work. Is there a particular day that works better for everyone? I'm on maternity leave for a couple more weeks, so I'm pretty open.
I'm available any day.
I'm out of town April 10th through the 17th.
And then, so our next meeting, let me just open my calendar. Our next meeting is the last week of April, right, Kim? Just how it falls on the
Yes,
calendar.
that's correct.
Okay.
27.
Okay, so how about we do the week after Tom is back? Is there a particular day that works better for everyone that week at 5:30?
which week is that, Rachel?
Um,
April
The
12th or
19th.
5th?
the 19th through the,
Night.
Yeah, I think that the 19th and 20th are good for me, either one.
do we want to say the 19th? Get it over with on a Monday?
Sounds good.
Okay, so the 19th at 5:30 will be the first one. Now, I just want to make sure I get the updated agenda up. So
Rachel, I
don't-
was
I
wrong.
don't see,
Oh, you were.
Rachel, I was wrong. I was wrong. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. So we're looking at having one on basically 156. Then Hatchet Gold in a color. Does anybody have?
Well, that Cutler one's pretty close to the one on 156.
Right. And if it happens that the sewer application is in the middle, that's fine. I'll just kind of step away and then I'll just follow the commission to the next one.
And we'll get, Rachel, we'll get an agenda prior to the site walk that will have the addresses and times and so forth.
Correct, yes. Kim is always
Okay.
great about that out.
Yeah, thank you.
So why don't we do Cutler first, then the sewer application. Gould versus Hatchet's Hill. I'm thinking Hatchet's Hill and then Gould Lane. I'm not really completely sure where Gould Lane is.
Gould Lane,
Gould Lane is
It's
across, like right off exit 70, across from the DEP. Like Ferry Road.
So maybe Hatchet's Hill, and then you could just hop on the highway and get off at exit 70 for Gould Lane.
yeah, that probably would work.
Okay, so we got the order. Great. All right, so is anyone, for agenda item number 2, is anyone here for the Town of Old Lyme WPCA for the sewer project? I know it's new business, so really it's just setting up the sidewalk. Right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is application 20, which is Prospect Transportation of New England LLC at 38 Hatchet's Hill Road for the building of a truck service building for its transportation and logistics business. Is anyone here from that application?
Yes, here, Madam Chairman, John Bennett, and I represent the applicant.
Hello, Mr. Bennett. So is the meeting okay with you or your client for a site walk visit?
Unfortunately, I didn't hear the date you had selected, so could you tell me what that was?
April 19th, we would be there at just about 6:30, 6:15 to 6
AM.
p.m.
I'm sure that's fine. There's no activity in the wetlands or the setback area, so I don't think it's a significant situation. But if that's your pleasure, that's fine with us.
Okay, great. So then we'll see you and your client on the 19th, which is a Monday, just to give us a lay of the land, and then we'll be back at the April meeting to be able to go over, whether we might tell you at the site walk that if there's no activity in the upland review area, that you don't need to the next meeting. But if you do, then you would come back on it's the last, and that's our meeting. Are the wetlands at the property?
I lost that last sentence.
Are the wetlands flagged on your property question?
I'm still, you're breaking out. Are the wetlands what?
John, can
Flag.
you mute yourself when you're talking, we're getting a lot of feedback from you. That's part of the reason I think you're having trouble hearing. Could you just
I'm
mute yourself
sorry.
when?
So, so are the wetlands on the property flagged? So that way we would be able to determine where the wetlands are.
That's my understanding.
Great. So then we'll be able to get a better look and a lay of the land on the 19th, and then we'll let you know if we think, based on the application and everything, that you need to come to the meeting the next week, or whether we say that we don't have any jurisdiction over if there truly is no activity happening in the upland review area.
Many thanks.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to number 4, which is application 21-9 for Daniel's Propane at 5 Gold Lane. The setting of 2 LP tanks, which includes running a 15-foot copper, I'm assuming pipe, and trench approximately 10 feet. And the property owner, Michael Schweitzer. Is anybody from that application on the call today? No, okay. So just reaching out and making sure they know when the site walk is. Okay. All right, so then moving
Yeah, I'll
on.
let them know.
Great, thanks, Dan. Moving on to number 5, which is application 21-10, Michael Riggio for 18 Cutler, adding 4 feet to an existing deck. Is Mr. Riggio on the line today? I give everybody a couple minutes. I'm not hearing anybody, so remember to unmute yourself. All right.
I thought I saw him earlier, but I guess not.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll just reach out, make sure he knows when the site walk is, and then we'll be able to talk to him then. All right. So at this time, we're done with new business, so we're going to be moving on to the public hearing. Again, I ask that everyone mute themselves after I'm just done with my little spiel. Dan is going to take over and explain the hand raising strategy, work to you, so that way you can voice your opinions. I really appreciate all the letters and emails that we got on this application. The commission has had a chance to review them all. Our last email was just a few hours ago with another batch that came in up to this afternoon. So again, I thank the public for your interest in this application and your comments. To just remind everyone, I know that this application has gotten a lot of press and there is a lot of interest in this application. We at the Inland Wetlands Commission are solely concerned with the inland wetlands and watercourses implications of this application, any environmental effects of this application. So any comments regarding the Halls Road Improvement Committee, Planning and Zoning Committees, anything that has to do with the Planning and Zoning Committees, traffic aspects, that's not something that Wetlands is concerned with. Certainly that could be a part of your comment, but that's not something that can sway us. We are beholden to the wetlands regulations, and we have a very limited review for this application. So while I appreciate everyone's comments, I do ask that you limit it to our scope, and then I'm sure this is going to be going up to other commissions where you can also voice your comments related to those commissions' purview. So with that, Dan, take it away, because I don't know the hand raising process on WebEx.
Okay, yeah, real quick, I'll try to give this as clearly as possible. For anyone on, a desktop computer that's using it, what you're going to want to do is pull up the participants list. It's on the right-hand side of your screen in the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on that, it'll show a list of everybody who's on there. So if you find your name and you hover over your name, you'll see to the right of there a little raise hand icon. What you do is you just click on that if you have a comment that you'd like to make, and then what it'll do is it'll put you in order on the list in a queue of the first comment, and so on and so forth. And what we'll do is we'll go through those comments. Now, if somebody answers your question, or if you no longer want to speak, just go back to your name where the raised hand sign is and just click on that, and you'll be taken off. Now, if you're on a touch tone phone, which I think we only have 1 or 2 people on, what you do is you hit *3, and it should prompt you saying your hand has been raised or something like that. I've not personally heard it. And if you want to undo it, hit *3 again. So it should be fairly simple. And that's the end of my tutorial.
Okay, and then also when you first start speaking, a couple of you, as I was scrolling through, I do see just a first name. Sometimes I see owner or laptop user. First, calling user, nothing to say. Dan, can you mute them? Thank you. So when it's your turn to speak, you do have to announce your name first and last and your address. You do have to be a resident of Old Lyme. So please do that at the beginning of your comment. If you don't, we might cut in and ask you to announce who you are fully. That will help us a lot just with the minutes of this meeting. So with that, I would ask that the applicant and their representatives unmute themselves. I'm sure you have a presentation or some things that you would like to address, and then I would open up the public comment period after that.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the agency. My name is Robin Pearson. I am an attorney with the law firm of Alter and Pearson in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and pleased to be here this evening on behalf of the applicant, which is Big Y Foods, Inc., with regard to their application to conduct regulated activities at 25 Neck Road and 95 Halls Road in the town of Old Lyme. The properties are currently owned by the Essex Savings Bank. The purpose of the application, for which, as the chairperson noted, there's been a great deal of publicity, is to construct a new convenience store with retail motor vehicle fueling facility on a site which is a combination of those 2 properties. And before we get started with our actual presentation, I'd like to note that we have provided to the administration the required copies of the notices and the return receipts that were submitted with regard to this application. To review where we are in the process of this application, I would just like to both remind for the commission and to let everyone else know who is interested in how this application will resolve itself. The application was accepted by the agency back on January 26th at its meeting. At that time, our engineer, Ryan Scritterwall from Alfred Benesch and Company, gave an overview of the application information. The application was received at that meeting. The commission decided at that meeting that it would make sense to hold a site walk. A site walk did take place on January 30th, and the commission then met again on February 23rd of this year to decide whether or not to hold a public hearing on the application. And they considered a number of factors in reaching the decision to set this up for a public hearing to commence this evening. And those included a petition that was filed by interested residents in the community requesting a hearing. There was an intervention petition and request for hearing filed by attorney Marjorie Shansky on behalf of her clients. The applicant's engineer, Ryan Scritterwall, was also there again that evening to answer any questions that the agency members had with regard to the application itself and the suitability for a hearing. And also there that evening was Martin Brogy, who is the applicant's soil scientist. Eric Davison of Davidson Environmental had prepared an environmental report. He is the town's consultant. And the commission did have the benefit of that when they were considering whether or not to hold this as a public hearing. And what the commission decided was that ultimately it felt, and I derived this from the minutes because I was not actually involved at that point, but your agency apparently determined that there was a potential for a significant impact on the wetlands, and this hearing was therefore scheduled. So that brings us to tonight. And we have here on behalf of the applicant this evening, two representatives from the applicant itself, which is Big Y Foods, Inc., and that is Tony Capola, who is the Director of Design and Construction, and also Chris Elliott, who is the Senior Manager of Store Design, Procurement, Energy. They're here to answer questions, but they're not going to be part of the presentation. And doing our presentation tonight is our engineer, again, Ryan Scritorol, who is with Alfred Benesch and Company. Unfortunately, not here this evening is our soil scientist. And Martin Brody, who was here to answer questions at the beginning of this process, is actually hospitalized now. He has been tested positive for COVID, and he's not having a good time with it. So he had intended to be out on the site this past week to do additional analysis and to be available for this evening, but clearly that's not going to happen. And so obviously we all wish him well. I'm assuming he's going to be fine and he can come to our assistance soon, but we certainly request, while we intend to present information this evening with regard to the application, as well as to answer any questions that you may have, we ask that this be able to go over to another meeting, and so that the hearing would be continued, which will give us time to complete our analysis and also to respond to any issues that come up this evening.
I think we can say right now that we will keep this open to make sure that he can answer questions when he's doing well, and we wish him the best.
Thank you very much. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our engineer to go through everything that we have been able to put together for you today.
Thank you, Robin, and good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Scritorol. I'm a professional engineer with Alfred Benesch and Company, and for the record, our address is 120 Hebron Avenue, Glastonbury, Connecticut. If it's okay, I'd like to share the screen today, just so I can put up my presentation. Give me 1 second here. Okay, can everybody see the existing condition map that's in front of you right now? I'm going to go with, okay, yes. I was going to go with silence is golden, so I'm going to go with it. So, so what I'd like to do tonight is go through the proposed design and then open it up for any questions you guys may have. As Robin had mentioned, our soil scientist, Martin Brody, wasn't able to attend tonight, so I'm going to do the best that I can to answer the questions, but we may have to defer some until next time when Martin can join us. So as a brief overview of the site's located at 95 Halls Road and is currently a cleared lot tucked between the Treasure's Home Goods Store located to the east and the Essex Savings Bank to the west, with a stretch of land behind the bank spanning to Neck Road, Route 156. The site currently has one curb cut on Halls Road, Route 1, with a paved drive. Through our initial research on the property, it was discovered that the site was a former bulk fueling facility. When we went to perform the survey on the property, our surveyors had a discussion with the property owner of 29 Neck Road, which is located to the north, and it was brought to our attention that there may be some wetlands on the site. Subsequently, we hired Martin Brody Associates to evaluate the site, since the town mapping didn't include any wetlands on or adjacent to the property. Martin's site visit resulted in the discovery of wetlands on our site in the area behind the savings bank and continued into the property of 29 Neck Road to the north. Let's see if this is a switch. There we go. The proposed design consists of a 2,200 square foot convenience store, 6 fueling dispensers with access drives on Hall Road and Neck Road. We've graded the site to primarily drain towards Halls Road and will be utilizing an above ground detention basin to minimize the impacts to the wetland area. The access road will drain to an underground recharge system with a high level overflow into Neck Road. Our stormwater analysis reduces the peak flow to all of the outfall points and reduces pollutants to meet the recommended 80% TSS removal. So since this is a gas station that's being proposed, I wanted to go into some of the safety protocols and the products that are going to be installed so the commission can understand the system and get a little bit of a sense of comfort. Since this is going to be a new system, we're proposing to install double wall tanks, double wall piping with electronic line leak detection, fiberglass sumps, all of which have leak detection and are monitored by the Veeder-Root system and the attendant. In the event that a leak is detected, it immediately sounds an alarm and the attendant can then shut down the system and call for immediate repairs. We are also proposing double poppet crash valves at the dispenser and breakaway valves at the hoses. Both of these that in the event that somebody accidentally drove away with the hose, it immediately shuts off the flow of fuel so no real leak happens. So there will also be positive limiting barriers keyed into the mats for any minor drippage that occurs at the pumps. All of the attendants that work at the Big Y undergo an extensive training protocol and have to adhere to the spill prevention plan that has been developed for all of their stations. This ensures that the individuals manning the systems are fully capable if something was to occur, and spill buckets are also stationed at all of the dispensers. With regards to the erosion and sedimentation controls for the proposed development, we're planning on implementing silt fence barriers backed with hay bales to reduce disturbance in the upland review areas and adjacent to the wetlands. Stockpile areas will be kept as far away from the wetlands as physically possible. And as I had mentioned previously that this property was once a bulk fueling oil facility, during construction, our client will be performing soil testing on all excavated materials and removing and legally disposing of any contaminated soils that would be encountered. Now, the tanks that were previously there are actually in the location of the proposed convenience store. So that area is part of the drainage area for the wetlands. So any type of contaminated soils that are within that area will be removed, and actually you will end up with a cleaner site than what is there currently. During our past meetings in front of this commission and discussions with the adjacent property owner, a vernal pool was discussed, and its location was asked to be explored and documented at the last meeting. Our office has attempted to gain access to the adjacent property to determine the exact limits of the vernal pool, but has not yet been given the access to do so. Our soil scientist, Martin Brogy, has visited the site on several locations and has determined that the vernal pool is not located on our property, but rather is located on the 29 Neck Road to the north. Since we haven't been able to gain access to determine the exact location of the map of the vernal pool, we have prepared this map with guidance from Martin Brogy to give an approximate limit of the area and have overlaid our property lines in order to give the commission and the public a visual representation as to the proximity. The area that we believe is the vernal pool is the area denoted in the magenta, and the red line is actually the wetlands that we have flagged on our property, just to give everybody a kind of a heads up on that. We have received comments from the town's hired consultants, Thomas Metcalf and Eric Davison. Our office has reviewed and provided responses to all of their comments earlier today to the town. In summary, we don't find any objection to any of the comments that either of the professionals have offered. I'm not going to go through all of the modifications that we're proposing, but a few of the key items that we're including in our newest revision will be installation of a 2-foot barrier in lieu of the 6-inch barrier curb that we had proposed along the access road and all the way to the proposed convenience store. We're proposing to install a vegetated buffer consisting of evergreen trees as recommended by Mr. Davison. Implementation of no-mow grasses throughout the site. Reworking of some of the stormwater to ensure the existing hydrology is maintained and the wetlands are not depleted in any fashion. We're going to be installing tide flex valves on the outlets to ensure that no unwanted migration occurs within the wetland upland review areas. We're going to be avoiding construction of the access road during the breeding and juvenile dispersal period, which is between March and June. And we will be implementing the recommendations by Mr. Davison as we prepare the lighting plan for the property. Our office will adjust the plans to align with our responses that we have provided and any changes that are set forth from today's public hearing. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions that the commission may have and the public may have regarding this proposed project and the scope of work. I'll try to answer what I can, but some of them, again, with Martin being out of this meeting, may have to defer until next meeting. So.
So as Ryan said, do any commission members have any follow-up questions regarding the updated application? I know that we received from Kim within the last couple of hours the updated responses regarding the town experts. Did anybody have any follow-up questions after reading through those, or did everyone have a chance to review those?
I have a few questions.
Mike.
The convenience store, would that be selling items that would assist motorists, for example, motor oil, antifreeze, things of that sort?
No, we wouldn't be projecting to sell that. It's mostly a take and go type facility. We wouldn't be selling any motor oils in that area, no. Especially now with the proximity to the wetlands area that we have. And
well, many convenience stores do. It's a gas station and people running to get gas. They see the oil light on or their antifreeze light on, and many convenience stores sell those things. So I'm not sure that's going to be something in the future we can rely on if a store decides to sell those products. But my question goes to, you went on with the protection with the underground fuel tanks and all that, or the fuel tanks you're putting in, the spill and all that. But you know, just using common sense, I put fuel in my car and there's spillage. Every single car, even if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 drops, this close to a wetland, have you projected what typical spillage is just from customer use of petroleum products?
you mean from like a dispersion of a hose when you're filling up your car, I'm assuming?
Yeah, you know, you're going to have accidents, and
so that's where the PLBs that I had mentioned, the positive limiting barriers, those are the grooves that are, I don't know if when you're looking, not many people pay attention when they're driving around in the gas station as much as, but the grooves that are dispersed inside the concrete mat that's underneath the canopy. So those are the first line of prevention. So essentially, if a drip happens, and we're talking very, very minor spills or anything of that nature that happens occasionally, those are the first line of defense. So those grooves are meant to capture any type of spill that happens and any type of runoff that goes towards, you know, the outfall ultimately. So that's the first line of defense, is those, you know, positive limiting barriers. At that point, what we're planning on doing is at the bioretention or the detention pond that's in the front of the property, what we've tried to do is pull all of the grading for the gas station area with the fueling and the underground storage tanks away from the wetlands. And we're trying not to have it go anywhere near the wetlands or discharge towards those wetland areas. So we are pulling that, you know, runoff that potentially would have any type of leakage in it away from the wetlands. The revised plan that we're going to be presenting to you guys in the upcoming, you know, week or so, will have a catch basin prior to the discharge into the detention pond. That will have a oil grit separator included in it, which will contain any type of spill that would happen, those little minor leaks. Those oil grit separators, which is essentially a hydrodynamic separator, can, you know, I don't know the exact number of how much gallonage they do contain within them, but, you know, it is a pretty significant gallonage. So, you know, what they do is they rely on the fact that petroleum will sit at the top of the surface of water. So as any runoff collects any petroleum that may have dripped from, you know, just from you pulling out the nozzle and going, you know, putting it back into the dispenser, that would be contained within the sump and not be discharged. So the clean water would then be discharged into the detention pond, while the trapped, you know, petroleum would be then, you know, collected within the basin, and then that would be cleaned out on a, you know, fairly regular basis, which are all outlined in our stormwater manual.
Okay, thank you for that answer. The other observation I had, and I did swing by the property because when we did the site walk, the weather was cooler. We're sort of now in the vernal pond season. And the area that I'm looking at, where is that an access road that runs down to 156?
Correct.
Road? Okay.
Yep.
So from my mind's memory, being there recently, I'm pretty sure I saw water down there. And I know you indicated that you're still not sure yourself where the vernal pond may be, but I know I saw water looking in that direction for where I parked my truck. So I'm very concerned that we're still not sure where the vernal pool is, especially this time of year. We have spring runoff and all of that. So now is definitely the time of year that maybe this area should be on the spotlight so we can get a good sense of where the wetlands, the exact wetland and that vernal pool reside. Did you have a chance, or anybody from the applicant, to recently go by the property to maybe take photos of where that water is?
Yeah, so we have been trying to get out there with Martin. Personally, I have been out on site. My coworker Larry Webster was out on site just this past Monday. We do have some photos, but I don't feel comfortable making that determination as to where that vernal pool is without having Martin, our soil scientist, observe the site. He was scheduled to go out. Unfortunately, as Robin had mentioned, he came down with not only COVID, but then the flu, and then had to hospitalize himself fairly recently. So he is, I got a text from him just recently, so he is on the mend on a fairly heavy dose of something that should get him back on his feet soon. So he has every intention to get out there knowing that this is the period of time that we need to document it. So we are doing what we can to try to get out there. If Martin seems to still be under the weather in the near future, I will be enlisting another soil scientist to try to make that determination quickly, knowing that this is the time period to do so.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
And kind of on that point, Ryan, just for the purposes of the legal ramifications of a public hearing, would you be open, I know we spoke about this earlier, to keeping the public hearing open until Martin is able to come and discuss some of the finer points with the commission, or until you retain another soil scientist? Are you okay?
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this at length between myself, Robin, and Big Y, and we just wouldn't feel prudent to even try to attempt to close the public input at this point, knowing that unfortunately our soil scientists couldn't make it, nor could Mr. Davison. So it's kind of, I think it's only prudent to allow everybody to have their time to speak.
Okay, wonderful. Because I'm covering all the bases, just making sure. So for everyone on the phone or on WebEx right now, we are beholden under Connecticut law to hold the public hearing and close the application and make a determination within a certain amount of time. And we might be pushing the barriers of that time limit. So if the applicant acquiesces to it, we can delay that, or we can extend that time period, which is why we are asking these questions. All right.
Mrs. Scatoro, this is Gary Gregory. We mentioned the wetlands and the 100-foot review area, which looks to me like the access road is like 100% in that area. You didn't mention anything about the upland review area for the vernal pool.
Yes. So
could you clarify that, please?
So subsequently, if we determine that there is a vernal pool, which would, from Martin Brogy, I will be updating the plans to give the subsequent upland review area for the vernal pool. In the event that that is fully determined, it's going to be the entire property. The entire property will now be essentially in the upland review area, which is why I really wanted to go through the safety protocols tonight of the petroleum fueling facility, just so you guys were aware of, that the newer systems that are being installed aren't your gas stations of ye old that, like the bulk fuel oil facility that was there that I believe stored almost 60,000 gallons underground in the upland review area. So, I did want to stress that, and, I'm more than welcome to, answer any additional questions. I mean, I went and gave a brief overview of that system. But, even when I mentioned, leak detection that goes to a Vita root system, Big Y doesn't spare the expenses, just allowing that being the only thing. We also put that electronic leak line detection, which doesn't even require an attendant in order for alarms and the system to shut down. So in the event that any leakage happens from any of the underground piping or any of the sumps, it immediately shuts down the system so that no fuel is being pumped at that point. So Big Y has gone kind of above and beyond with their fueling system that we've helped design with them to kind of be a little bit more environmentally sensitive in terms of, their systems themselves. So.
Great. Do any other commission members have any questions? I think a lot of my questions will go to the soil scientist, whoever it ends up being. So that would probably be at the next meeting, unless the applicant needs an extension on that. But do any?
I have a question, Rachel.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Evan Griswold. Since this property is owned by the currently owned by the Essex Savings Bank, was there ever any consideration of using the current paving to the north of the bank as the access to Neck Road, rather than building a new impervious roadway from the convenience store to Neck Road? You show on the site plan an entrance and ingress and egress on Halls Road. I'm not sure I understand what the point of the access road to Neck Road is.
Sure. It's the access road is an availability for patrons who are utilizing the store to not have to actually utilize the signal at the intersection. We looked at trying to utilize the area around the Essex Savings Bank, just from preliminary discussions, but as you know, it has a one-way circulation around the bank itself for their use of the drive-through facility. So it wouldn't really work for us to actually utilize that area. Also, being that even though Essex Saving Bank owns the property, it is being leased on a long-term lease for Big Y. So it would be essentially Big Y operating and maintaining that facility as a standalone thing. Although, underlying would be owned by, Essex Saving Bank at the time. So.
But could there be some sort of boundary line modification to accommodate moving the access road closer to the bank and away from the wetland?
I would have to discuss that with Big Y, so I don't really have an answer for that right now. So if it's okay, Commissioner, I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
I think that's great that you could get back to us on that one.
Mr. Secretary, this is Gary Gregory again. I have a concern or a question for you. As far as the impervious square footage there, it just seems to me like we would need a hydrologist to tell us that we're not going to change the water in the vernal pool.
No, I wouldn't think that you would need one for this. It's at the end of the day, you're talking the volume of water that's going to be brought to the wetlands itself. So we're trying to recharge the wetlands. At the end of the day, the volume that's going, the drainage area that contributes to the wetlands, it isn't as extensive as one would think for that area. So what I plan on doing and talking with your hired engineer, Tom Metcalf, is kind of do a breakdown of the pre and post for the wetland, the contribution to that wetland, and showing that post-development, we will still have the same amount of volume that's being contributed to the wetland itself and the vernal pool. So the goal at the end of this, which shouldn't be too hard to accomplish, is to make sure that the amount of water that if a raindrop falls, whether it be groundwater or surface runoff, makes it to that wetland, it still remains the same. So whether it be a slightly smaller area, but then a harder surface, well, impervious surface, the drainage characteristic changes. So therefore, an impervious surface would allow for more water to make it to there, being a less drainage area contributing to it. So I plan on putting together a kind of a microcosm kind of drainage analysis for the wetland to make sure that we supply that wetland with enough water.
Great.
Ryan, this is Evan Griswold again. What is it? Can you give us an idea about the curbing on the access road? It's always been a concern.
Sure.
About migration of critters going in and out of the vernal pool, if in fact it's determined that it is a vernal pool.
Understood. Yeah. So what we had originally proposed, with a little bit of direction from Martin Broggie when we were first developing it, was to add a 6-inch high barrier curb. Subsequently, after speaking with Mr. Davison and getting his review of the project, he felt that it should be a little bit more kind of preventive, to have a little bit higher of a barrier, so to speak. So what we're agreeing to is to put a 2-foot high barrier. And he had provided a specific product that he wanted us to use or something along those lines. So we are going to be planning on putting in a 2-foot high barrier along the entire access road. And I apologize, I'm getting some feedback from somebody. Along the entire access road and then connecting up to the building facade at the 2,200 square foot convenience store. One thing to note, and I didn't exactly specify this, I was hoping when Martin got here we could talk about it, but the migration of the species that are, if this is potentially a vernal pool, the Essex Saving Bank is not too far from the actual access road. So what we have here is the ability for critters to actually make its way to the Essex Savings Bank regardless. What we are proposing with the access road, albeit being closer to the wetlands, we are providing safe habitat for them and preventing them from actually making it to that area in the Essex Savings Bank that could become problematic for it. As I had mentioned in my presentation, the drainage that we do bring back to make sure that those wetlands are fully vetted and have enough stormwater being brought to them. One of the concerns would be, if we brought in a pipe with an outfall, how would the species not make their way into the pipes and get trapped or into the catch basins? So the 2-foot barrier curb would prevent them from getting onto the access road, but those outfall pipes that we are proposing, how would they prevent that? So those tide flex pinch valves that I'm planning on proposing, they essentially look like, and I'll bring a kind of a demonstration as to how they operate, but they revolve around the fact that hydraulic pressure operates those valves. So they look almost like if you were to hold your hand up and hold it with a closed fist and think as the pressure grows, your hand starts to open up, the water starts to discharge. And then as the pressure, recedes, it closes back up on itself. So at that point, there would be no way for any, species to actually go back into the pipe system that we're proposing. So we are trying to make sure that, one, we are maintaining that, that entire wetland area and being cautious and making sure that we're not trying to have any type of impact to those species as well.
Thank you.
Brian, I just want to take an opportunity quickly. I did see on the chat that somebody had asked if you had sent notice of the application and of this public hearing to the owners at 4 Huntley Road. I was in receipt of your certified mailing list, and it lists 2 Huntley Road as getting the notice. I just want to bring up for the public that 4 Huntley Road doesn't truly exist according to the old Lyme GIS system. What used to be 4 Huntley Road is actually owned by the owner of 2 Huntley Road. It shows up on our system as 2 Huntley Road. So that is where the notice went for 4 Huntley Road. So I don't think that there is a notice issue here because it went by what was available on the town GIS. Any questions from the commission before I open it up to go to the public? And I'm going to allow Dan to facilitate that since he can see the hand raising.
This is Brian Farnham from 29 Neck Road.
Hold on one second, Brian. Hold on.
Brian.
I know you're first, but yeah, hold on
Okay.
1 second, Brian.
Sorry.
Yeah, need to make sure that the commission members have finished asking questions. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more when the soil scientist, whoever it ends up being, is able to attend the meeting. But does anybody have any other questions for Ryan at this time, or anybody else from Big Y? All right, so I'm not hearing any. So Dan, take it away.
All right. Yeah. So sorry about that, Brian. Brian Farnham, you're first. Go ahead.
Okay, just about Huntley Road. I believe that it is 2 separate properties, one at 4 Huntley and one at 2 Huntley. So if you want to check that through the
I'm on
appraisal.
I'm actually on the Town of Old Lyme GIS, where it's showing what used to be 4 Huntley Road. It's included with 2 Huntley Road.
Okay, I was just going by the property tax section of the division appraisal. That's all.
Okay.
One question I do have for Ryan is, could he talk about the amount of fill that he's planning to put onto 99 Neck Road? Because the south 99 Halls Road, because the southeast corner, there's quite a substantial drop off between the Essex Bank and this property. Are they planning to fill this in all the way up to the new proposed road?
I apologize. I didn't hear that last bit, Brian.
Just that going along the border at 99 Halls Road, next to the Essex Bank, there's got a substantial drop off.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning to fill that? If you're planning to fill that, would that generate a culvert to go across the proposed roadway that's going to exit out onto Neck Road?
So you're talking between the access road and the Essex Saving Bank area?
No, I'm talking about the southeast corner of 99 Halls Road, where the Essex Bank is, and it drops right off, and this property then rises up. There's about a 5 or 6 foot drop off.
Yeah, so that area is actually a localized depression. When we did our existing hydrology, review of the area, we're talking about the area right in, and I'm not sure if you can actually see my mouse cursor or not.
I can.
Okay, so this is the area that we're referring to. So it kind of raises up here as we kind of go up into the Essex Savings Bank. We are planning on kind of keeping that, but maintaining and actually reducing the amount of area here that contributes to this low-lying area. So there's no outfall for that drainage in that area. We are planning on maintaining it slightly, but we're trying to take the water away from that area and bring it into this detention pond that's located in the front of the property. So essentially there used to be a very large kind of depression that has absolutely zero outfall to it. And what we're planning on doing is actually reducing that depression and kind of bringing the water towards a more natural area that actually is set for that. It's not actually a detention pond, it's just a natural kind of low-lying area. We did have a check to make sure that there weren't wetlands on the site for that, because sometimes when you have a low-lying area like that, it could potentially create a wetland, but we have had it checked with Martin, and it doesn't seem to be that case. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
If you're all set, Brian, then I will move the next question on to Marjorie Shansky.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm attorney Marjorie Shansky. I represent 85 Halls Road, owner LLC. We filed a verified petition for intervention at the meeting in February. The petition is dated February 19th, 2021, and I urge the commission to refresh its recollection about its content. It alleges the reasonable likelihood of unreasonable pollution to natural resources within this commission's jurisdiction as a result of the proposed activity. And with me this evening is Dr. Michael Clements, the herpetologist, to whom I would like to give the podium in a moment. But first, if I may, I'd like to reform some of the conversation that council had with the commission introducing this application, because I was at the February 23rd meeting of the commission. And I would simply say that on the issue of the commission's finding, the commission's determination that the proposed activity.
Could I ask everyone please mute themselves if they're not speaking?
Thank you.
Sorry, Marjorie.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That the commission's determination that the proposed activity may have a significant impact in order to hold this public hearing in accordance with section 9.1 of your regulations was squarely made by declaratory sentence and was not the product of the petition that was filed by citizens, which both at the time of that meeting and reflected in the minutes was deemed to not be an effective petition because of the inability to verify that the signatories were electors. And indeed, I had submitted a letter to the commission dated February 19th, in which I did not request a public hearing per se, but in which I recited two sections of your regulations, specifically in section 2 in the definition of significant activity, to suggest that the predicate for holding the public hearing was found indeed through the proposed activity and your regulatory jurisdictional remit. So we are here under section 9.1 of your regulations, and we are here under section 10.7 of your regulations, which require, or which sets forth that the applicant has the burden of establishing its eligibility for the permit. And through the comments that we've just received and the reporting that I received this afternoon, actually while I was teaching and unable to review until just before this meeting, the application is in a state of transition and there's missing information. There will be changed information. And so we don't want to go deep on our specific concerns because it is in flux. But I do want Dr. Clements to provide some information to the commission because it is prime vernal pool season coming up, and I have a deep affection for Mr. Brogy, and I wish him nothing but good health and as quickly as possible. And I'm sure that the applicant will take seriously the fact that this is the moment. So with that, and with the understanding of two things, that we will be back to share substantive comments with you on the revised application at your next meeting, and that we would appreciate, as parties to these proceedings, to be provided with new information contemporaneously with its submission to the town, so that we can also engage in timely review and expedite the processing of this application. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Michael Clements, whose resume I have emailed to Ms. Groves this afternoon, and here's Dr. Clements. Dr. Clements, you have to unmute.
Go ahead, Dr. Clements. You had your hands raised right after Marjorie, so you certainly are up.
Interesting. I see a camera. Do you see me? No, I just see a.
No, we don't, but we can hear you. Did you have a material that you would want to share, or are you okay with just
No,
an
no,
audio?
it's very odd. I have a reverse. I never used WebEx. Anyway, good evening. I am Dr. Michael Clements. I'm a herpetologist. My principal offices are at Falls Village, Connecticut at 105 Main Street. My specialty is in ecological land use planning, but certainly particularly deals with herpetology and vernal pools. And I too am very sorry to hear about Mr. Brogy's illness. We worked together on projects. It's kind of awkward because this is the time, as Attorney Shansky says, to look at this vernal pool and its biota. And I would offer the following comments just to try to be helpful in sort of scoping the kind of information that I believe is required or you will need in order to assess the impact or lack thereof on the vernal. Firstly, we don't know where the boundary of the vernal pool is. It apparently is now represented as being embedded within a larger wetland system, and it's called a cryptic vernal pool. But certainly, as Mr. Miller stated earlier, really don't know where the limits of vernal pool ponding and how much of that wetland is actually being used for vernal pool obligate species breeding. So I understand the magenta area on the map is a best guess, but one really needs to understand where the vernal pool is, and then one needs to understand where the next 100 feet are, which is known as the vernal pool envelope, and then from 100 feet to 750 feet, which is the critical upland terrestrial habitat. And this is all contained in a publication that I co-authored with Dr. Aram Calhoun, called Best Development Practices for Conserving Pool Breeding Amphibians, which I think really provides a template. Critical to what information needs to be collected now. And I should also state that as far as I can see, the last data that were collected at this site were in 2006 by Richard Snarsky, which means the vernal pool data are more than 15 years old and need to be revisited, the biota. Curiously, at least to me professionally, was the presence of spotted salamanders and fairy shrimp, but notable absence of the wood frog. And wood frogs are really critical here. So the first question I believe you need to address is, are wood frogs present in that vernal pool? I think that needs to be answered, and needs to be answered now. Wood frogs have begun chorusing already in this part of the state, and after tomorrow night's rains, I think the amphibian migrations and breeding activity will be in full swing, and this is the time to gather information. So the first question is, what is the biota in this vernal? Are there wood frogs? Are there still spotted salamanders that were reported in 2006? Are the fairy shrimp, which is an obligate invertebrate, still present? We talked about the exclusionary barriers, and certainly the 2-foot high barrier that Mr. Davison has recommended is appropriate for wood frogs. It is appropriate for spotted salamanders. It will not help exclude species such as spring peepers or gray tree frogs because those have suction cups on their feet and can climb over. But I guess what I'm really asking at this point is there needs to be a lot more data on the biota. Vernal pool becomes a vernal pool as distinct from a wetland when the obligate biota is documented in that pool. Based on the obligate biota that is or is not there, and the appropriate conservation strategies to maintain that biota need to be employed. Wood frogs are a unique and special case in that the presence of wood frogs or absence thereof have been tied directly to the chemical and biochemical and physiological aspects of the water within a vernal pool. Unlike the other obligate species, the wood frogs actually are involved in nutrient cycling and the prevention of eutrophication of wetlands. So the loss of wood frogs has a profound effect on the quality of the water in the wetland. So I'd like to conclude with stating that we really do need to see data, robust data on the biota. We need to also understand the directionality of where these species are coming from. I looked at aerial photographs, and there's a large area of forest to the north. I would assume that's without data, that's up to the applicant to determine, that the majority of the migration is coming from the north to the vernal pool. I agree that once the animals venture into the parking lot of the Essex Savings Bank, they're really lost to the population. That constitutes an ecological sink. So I'm really giving you a list of things that one needs to know. We need to know, well, first that you need to know as commissioners in order to evaluate the impact of this proposed activity. And certainly we as interveners need to know in order to assess the impact of the proposed activity on this vernal pool wetland complex. So that's really all I can say tonight. Thank you very much for your time. And I will try.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clements. Are you all set?
I will try to figure out why you couldn't see me. I think I have to download maybe WebEx and not just use the logon. So next time you can see me, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clements. And with that, we don't have any more comments from the public. I suppose if anyone else has anything else to say, please click the raise your hand tool. If not, I will turn this portion of the meeting back over to the chair, Rachel.
I have a question.
Okay. I don't know who said that, but
my name is Skip DiCamillo. I live at 68 Sill Lane in Old Lyme. And my question is to the commission, actually. Will the engineering questions and answers be available online so the public can see them?
I believe that's something that you would have to go to town hall and make a request because that's part of the file now. So just as with any file, we don't make the entire file available online, but you can certainly request it from either Dan or Kim.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Skip. Nice to hear from you.
Good to hear your voice as well. Thank you.
Yes, so Skip, just reach out to Kim or myself, and we can make an appointment for you to come down and do the stuff, or email it out to you if it's possible.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Rachel,
Yes, Kim.
I did upload, when I received the comments from Ryan today, I uploaded his 2 letters onto the website, and tomorrow I will upload whatever else has come in onto the website.
Oh, great. Okay, so Kim is ahead of the game. I should have expected no less. If you can actually access those letters online.
Tom Metcalf's letter is there also.
Okay. Yes, Kim is on the ball, and she always has been.
Always has been. All right. Does anybody have any questions, Dan?
No, there doesn't appear to be any more questions at this time.
Okay. So I will just continue this hearing to our next regular meeting, so the last week of April. That should give the applicant some time to get together the information that has been requested of them today, and also time for their soil scientist, whoever it may be, to answer some of the questions that were posed tonight, as well as update some of the findings. So we look forward.
Rachel, can I ask a question that this is Evan again. I'm interested to know how the soil scientist or anybody in his place can gather the information without the permission of the neighbors to access the pond, so that whatever Dr. Clements says we need, the information we need will have to be gathered without that permission. Will have to be gathered remotely, sort of remotely at the edge of the wetlands or the edge of the property. So it would be, I think it would be helpful in our deliberations if there was access provided to a soil scientist or someone like Dr. Clements to assess the biota in that pond.
I agree with you, Evan. Unfortunately, I don't think that the commission can force a property owner
to
onto
I'm
their
just
right.
hoping that Brian would allow access to the pond so that the salamanders and frogs and fairy shrimp can be either positively or negatively assessed.
Yeah, I agree. And I do know that the property owner in question is on the line today. So hopefully they can work with Big Y to just allow a soil scientist access on foot to assess, because otherwise the last study that we have is from that property owner's 2003 application to this commission.
Right.
Was done at his expense, and so this time it would be done at somebody else's expense, which might speak to some of the questions or concerns that he had in his letter to the commission about property owners being treated the same, but also give him information about what might be possible on his property in the future. So it is my strong recommendation that the parties work together and allow a soil scientist to be given access to the potential vernal pool. So with that,
I think it's important to know that the commission can't do its work without the information that would be provided by access to the pond.
Yes, thank you, Evan. Thank you. All right. So if no other commission member.
Hold on 1 second. I think Ms. Pearson, Attorney Pearson, did you want to say something? I just got lucky. Your picture happens to be in front of me.
I did. Oh, I should have used the little hand. I apologize for that. I just want to make sure that when you indicate it's going to be continued, that you inform the public as to the date to which it would be continued to.
Yes, open up my calendar. So the next regular meeting.
Sorry to interrupt. We did have one other person raise their hand.
Okay, I'll answer this question first, and then we'll let the public speak again. So the next regular meeting of the commission, which is when the public hearing would be continued to, so the public hearing is going to remain open. That will be April 27th, and it will be at 6 o'clock again. And to be determined whether it's WebEx or in person. I'm thinking still WebEx. I don't know if with the public hearing, having that many people in a room, or potentially that many people in a room, would be a good idea. So April 27th at 6 o'clock. And then who's the member of the—
Yeah, sorry I interrupted you, Rachel. I just didn't know if you were jumping into the motion. I jumped the gun. I apologize.
Okay, Dan.
And yeah, I think meeting in person on this application could be troublesome. I know occupancy is up to 100%, but I'd have trouble maintaining social distancing, and even in the large meeting hall.
Right.
For this, because I have 40-something people on the call right now, that just wouldn't work.
Okay, so we'll just say.
But yeah, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying it should be on WebEx then. So we'll have the regular meeting and the public hearing on April 27th at 6 o'clock, which will be held on WebEx.
Okay, and okay, perfect. And then the gentleman who had his hand raised is lowered now. So did you want to speak, sir, or are you all set? I guess we'll take your silence as being all set.
Okay, this is Brian Farnham. I had my hand raised again. Basically what the situation is that it's Brian Farnham, 29 Neck Road. I'm the one who's actually the area that needs to be examined as part of my property. My concern at the moment is that we have ducks in that pond, and it's their breeding season, and I don't know if they have laid eggs or whatever. It's just that I was just trying to protect them. I don't know if we can wait. They may leave early this season, but they come every season. But that's the reason why I'm resisting having people go through the wetlands at the moment.
I completely understand, Mr. Farnham, and it is your property. A lot of people don't know my personal background on this commission. I have two bachelor's degrees, one in biological sciences, one in wildlife conservation and management. I did a lot of work as a scientist before going to law school, pursuing a degree not only for a Juris Doctor, concentrating in environmental law, but also getting a master's in environmental law and policy, and then becoming a legal fellow for a nonprofit in Connecticut that did purely environmental work, and then transitioning to a law firm. I have a lot of experience in this area. Usually for a vernal pool to be assessed, you don't have to go that deep into the wetland. A lot of it is just walking around the edge of the pool and being able to assess if there are eggs in the pool on the edge, whether it be for frogs or other wildlife in that area. Salamanders can usually be sussed out pretty easily. I don't think that a scientist would go out there and necessarily be blind to a duck nest, wherever it may be. I think it would be a very low impact activity and probably relatively quick. But of course, if you're able to work with Big Y and their scientists and kind of voice your concerns, which I'm sure will be raised to the soil scientist that ends up doing the study, they would at least have a better idea to look for potential duck nests that might be affected in getting their information. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better. It might not. But I'm sure that any scientist that goes out knows the implications of this time of year and the diverse wildlife that are breeding right now.
Okay, thank you for those comments.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Dan, is there anyone else on the? No.
No, there's not.
Okay, great. So then, for right now, as I said before, we are going to keep this public hearing open. We're going to continue it to April 27th at 6 p.m. on WebEx. Hopefully we'll have some updated information, especially in regards to the soil scientist findings, and we'll be able to have another conversation at that time. So I thank the public for all your comments tonight. I thank everyone that might not have spoken on this call, but submitted letters and emails. We are certainly receive your comments in those items, and we can review them prior to the meeting. I do ask that you try to get any comments that you send via email or letter in by at least April 26th at the close of business. So poor host doesn't need to be sending us a million emails trying to get us all the most up-to-date comments. It also gives us a good chance to review all of them. So again, I thank everyone. And
Rachel?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, Dan, may I just have a comment, Susan Bates? Or are we done? A general comment?
Yes.
Sorry, Susan, yeah, I didn't realize you had a comment. You did have your
That's
hand
all right.
raised. So that's
No,
the chairwoman.
I'm Susan, not the most list your address, please, just because
yes,
it's the public.
I will. Rachel, it's 3 Sandpiper Point Road. And I just want to commend the commission, in particular yourself and Dan and the staff at O-Line. I think all the citizens of O-Line need to be reminded that the commissioners are volunteers and that we are very lucky as a town to have your expertise and to have the diligence of the staff. And as I did mention earlier, I have been a wetlands commissioner in another part of the state, and you did an exemplary job tonight. So I think that that should be made known. And I have worked with the two Kims and Dan, and they always go the extra mile. So I am sure you're going to do continue to do that kind of work on this project and going forward on whatever comes in front of the commission.
Thank you so much, Susan. We appreciate those comments. All right. So with that, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing, and it will be continued. I'm always very careful about how I end public hearings. So on that, we will move on to, let me just open the agenda again. So many tabs are open right now on my computer. So we're going on to old business, which is, we'll start with item number 7 on the agenda, which is 6 Jericho Ken Schweitzer for the clearing of some trees that went on his property. Ken, are you on the call tonight?
Rachel, I don't see him on here, but you guys did receive, we did ask him to submit an application for your instructions at the last meeting, and I believe we did send that up to you guys.
Yes, I did have a chance to review the application. And now I just need to find it in my mess of tabs. Did everyone else on the commission have a chance to review that application? I want to take silence as a yes. Thank you, Tom. Okay, does anybody have any comments or concerns about that application?
Yeah, this is Evan. Again, I think it's incumbent on our commission to ask the applicant to have a plan, some sort of restoration plan that would define the wetland boundary and also any property boundaries that might have been compromised, So I'd like to see some kind of a plan of going forward, what he plans to do. Because from my view of what happened on the site walk is that that hillside, very steep hillside, was pretty well cleared, and I think if we continue to allow homeowners to simply take a free pass on clearing within the review zone, we're not doing our job.
I do have to agree with Evan regarding the application. Said that in the application it was to cut down trees that were dead and dying in 2019. This really just looks like a clear cut.
It looks like every tree was taken down, and frankly, the dead and dying trees are as important to the ecosystem as the live ones. There may in fact be more life in a dead tree than there is in a live tree. Strange to say, but
and I would say that I mean the incline of the hill where a lot of the trees were cut shouldn't have posed a danger to the property owners and their family, because it went down pretty far and into a very wet looking area. So I would agree that the applicant has to put forth some sort of information about how they plan to rehabilitate some of the trees that were cut down and rehabilitate the area.
So Rachel, if I'm hearing correctly, what I need to do is I need to contact Mr. Schweitzer,
Yes.
ensure that he's on the next meeting, and provide a more robust restoration plan. One of the things I told him is he had been waiting for the land trusts to do their survey to define the boundary, and I think that's still, a useful tool that we could use without forcing him to get a survey. I'm not sure if we need the wetlands delineated, as it's pretty clearly at the bottom of that slope is where the edge is. And basically I had told him 100 feet from the edge of that wetland up the hill was the review area that you guys were going to be looking for. So I think the application was a little thin, if I think that's the consensus I'm kind of getting.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I saw, and just make, be sure that it's 100 feet horizontal, not 100 feet up the hill.
Yeah, so I was utilizing the GIS in this case, which is actually for once that I mean, it's a little, based on how oblique the photo was taken, obviously positioning can get a little screwed up in the GIS, but I thought that was a clear enough tool to use with a clear wetland edge. And so, yeah, with that, it doesn't take into account the hill as a vertical distance. It's just the horizontal when measuring on that. So I did encourage Mr. Schweitzer to hire a professional to help him in this, and I will reiterate that recommendation, and that, the commission wants to see something solid in April. If the boundary isn't defined, by April, I still think, he can provide a restoration plan for the general area of the 100-foot review area.
That would be great,
Okay.
Dan.
Yep. Thanks, Dan.
All right. So then with that, we will move on to agenda item number 8, which is application 21-1, the Point of Woods Association cleaning within the channel. Is anybody here? I know we at the property area last week. No. Okay.
I've not seen anybody, and I haven't talked to Rick or Al since the site walk. I know they had a representative there who works for Point of Woods. But once again, they need to have a more defined statement what they're doing. It kind of has been fluctuating a little bit from meeting to meeting, it seems like. So I'll ask them to nail that down for you guys, because I think Rick has even admitted this has gotten a little more a greater scope than he had realized that, when he first agreed to kind of sign on to this. So I know one of the neighbors had an engineer at the last site walk to observe, and I'm hoping that he steps in to provide a concrete plan for you guys so that you can move forward on this application. If it does continue in this vein, would you want me to maybe make a recommendation to the applicant that they withdraw and come up with a concrete plan and then reapply?
I think that would be great, because it's been on our agenda for many months now. So maybe, instead of just we keep having the same discussion, it would be good if we just come back another time when they have a more concrete plan in place. So yes, we'll at least wait to hear from them. I do know that there was a death in the family of one of the applicants. So we wish them the best, and hopefully we hear from them soon. So moving on, so we won't take action on this particular agenda item. And now moving on to number 9, which is application 21-4, Christopher Papadopoulos. Sorry.
Papadopoulos, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much
Good,
for
how are
being
you?
and staying on the call this whole time. I saw your name early on. So
That's fine.
we were able to go to your property for the site walk and kind of see the work you were proposing. A couple questions were asked of your representative. Does anybody on the commission have any follow-up questions for Chris before we make a motion on this application?
Are we just gonna set the deck in the shed? Or are we gonna try to
Yeah, the deck's kind of the first priority. Yeah, the deck's going to be, respecting the setback rules and everything that, Dan had clearly discussed with me. And I appreciate that, Dan. He came out prior to the house to kind of walk through all that with me. And then the shed's just in disrepair. You probably could push it down on your own. So it would just be replacing the shed, but that's not that would probably be something that's, a couple years out. I just wanted to get it all in one application. So if there's anything with the shed, I know the shed's kind of set way back. I probably wouldn't have set it there originally if I had the house at the time they raised the shed. So, it's just a matter of, if it gets any worse, it's probably going to have to be taken down. I am using it to store things. It's really just kind of soaking in the water back there. Probably the footprint's is directly on the ground, which is probably most of the problem that I'm having with it. So, I respecting how close it is to the wetlands in the back is why I put it on the application. So it would just be the same footprint.
All right. Did anybody have any concerns about the application? I know I didn't have any concerns about this particular application.
I didn't have any. This is Evan. I didn't have any concerns about the deck. I did about the shed and Chris, if you have if you were going to replace it, I would strongly suggest you move it to a slightly drier site.
Yeah.
And probably put it up on sonotubes or even wooden posts, but just raise it so it's not actually in the standing water.
Yeah, totally agree. So if I was to move it to a different spot, that'd be a different situation, right? Because there'd be a different location. We have to go through all the approval process and everything.
Yeah, you might have to reapply if you're not going to do it right away, and maybe in a couple of years, come back to the commission and see what it looks like then.
Definitely can't put it closer to the wetlands than it is now.
No, definitely can't.
No, it'd float downstream.
I'm surprised it hasn't already.
I would say that,
Go to
I
bottom
mean,
probably.
shed in the backyard, you're going to be in that 100-foot review area regardless. So for me personally, I don't have a problem with approving the shed right now. And even if you ended up moving it somewhere else in your backyard, I wouldn't have a problem with it because it would probably be further away from the wetlands than it is now.
Without a doubt, yeah. Yep.
A motion, a motion saying that both are approved, and then if you end up moving the shed, I don't know if it's necessary to come back because it will really just be, what, five, maybe a
Drier.
5, from the wetlands. So I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone's willing to make a motion like that, or voice anything in support of that, rather than having him come back in a few years for something I think we all think would be better replaced right now.
I'll make a motion to approve, saying that the shed can't be any closer to the wetlands, which I don't think would be a problem.
And do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Evan. All those in favor? I'm in favor.
Aye.
Okay, so I heard Mike, Evan. Is Gary still on? Yep. Gary gave an okay. Okay, I only see a couple screens. Okay, so that unanimously passed. And did I hear somebody else chime in? I'm just making sure. No, okay. So that unanimously passed. So Chris, you can go ahead, get your deck situated in the shed whenever you feel the need to. We'll have it in on the town records that we approved it today. So that way, even if you choose to do the shed 3-4 years down the line, you shouldn't run into any issues.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Chris. You be well.
Yes, thanks. Take care.
All right. So then moving on, that concludes all of our business. So we just need to go through the minutes of first the regular meeting on February 23rd, 2021. Did anybody have any changes, or do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move to approve the minutes as written.
Wonderful. And do I have a second? Thanks, Tom. And all those in favor? I'm in favor.
Aye.
Great. All those opposed? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. And then the site walk meeting minutes of March 17th, 2021. Did anybody have any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the site walk minutes?
I'll approve. Motion to approve, sorry.
Thank you, Tom. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Gary. All those in favor? I'm in favor. And anybody opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are also approved. So does anybody have anything else that they need to discuss, or do I have a motion to close this meeting, which miraculously was under 2 hours?
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
Thanks, Tom. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. I'm in favor. I have a crying baby outside.
Okay.
But it was so nice to see all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that's still on the call. And I'll see you on April 19th for the site walks.
Great. Thanks, Rachel.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Tom, you look
Bye.
like you're in the Batcave, by the way. You got like a partial silhouette of Tom and then just darkness. Dark like Tom over there.
Should all do
Not
that
messing around.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.